Here's a problem you could have if you have a wood-framed floor. This might not be a problem if you have a concrete foundation, but sometimes the thresholds really get tore up if if the doors weren't installed properly, or if the flashing wasn't installed properly, or if maybe for some odd chance someone waters the house regularly with sprinklers. Sometimes you might want to put a piece of metal, and here we have a piece, just a regular piece of flashing metal, and I believe you can get most of this, you can get at lumber yards and some home improvement centers, maybe 4x4, 6x6. I'd leave it up to you what to get. This video is just kind of providing you with an example of what you can do. The flashing would come down over the framing, and you could stop the flashing in a variety of different places. You know, even if it came back 2 inches and you sealed it with some caulking, which you'll see here in a few minutes, that would be fine. You could bring it back farther. I'm just kind of throwing it out there, giving you an idea here. After you install the metal flashing, you can apply some caulking to the front. I don't recommend putting the caulking in the back. You're trying to protect everything from the front. Sometimes if you were to seal the back of this and seal the front of it and moisture actually got trapped underneath it, it could rot the threshold out even faster. So I kind of just recommend putting it in the front. And again, if it doesn't make sense, if you need to put it in the back, knock yourself out, run a continuous bead or a couple of beads through the front of it, and that's how it should look. This is where I was talking about the metal could be maybe just 2 inches. If you're going to do something like this, you really don't need the metal to go all the way across. So if you wanted to save some money, just go ahead and maybe a piece of 2-inch metal on this side would be fine. The front, of course, could vary depending upon the length or the width of the floor joist, something like that. Then you can install the threshold, or if you're going to, I don't have the door jamb in this picture, you'll see it in the next pictures. Simply, after you've applied the caulking, you are going to set the threshold down so that it will create a nice seal. It'll squish the caulking out. You'll just wipe it off of the front. And there's another view of it. Here's the door jamb and the threshold, and this isn't just a piece of wood. I made it flat. Most thresholds are going to be shaped so the water will drain away. You would just want to wipe the caulking off of the bottom here. And sometimes some people put a piece of wood trim in the front of this, and that would be fine. Any water that would leak off of the front would roll onto the wood trim, and any water that got behind it would actually roll down. The metal would protect the framing. And of course, this piece of wood trim that would be installed underneath, or if it was stuccoed underneath, the stucco wouldn't be as easy to fix. But if you had a piece of wood trim, you had some siding, you would just remove the wood trim and replace it. It'd be easy to fix something like this. But as long as the metal's here, then you are going to be protected. At least you're protecting the framing. And the framing is going to be, or I should say could be, a lot more expensive. And the labor could be a lot more time-consuming to do something like to start fixing the floor joists and the sheathing and stuff like that, instead of just pulling a piece of metal off, popping it on, and repainting it. This illustration gives us a better example of how the door jambs and the threshold will work. Usually the threshold is going to stick out past the door jamb, and leaving you with a little space here, maybe 3/4 of an inch or an inch. And of course, without that, you're not going to be able to put the flashing in properly. Now, I would also recommend sealing the top of this. Is probably already going to be sealed, but if it isn't, make sure that you seal the top of this. It wouldn't be a bad idea to go down a little bit either. If you just went down, I don't know, about an inch, you could seal this all the way down as long as all of your building paper and your flashing paper is going to go over that. And again, some of this stuff is common sense. The water runs down. If there's a little gap, the water can run into the gap and, of course, get behind the waterproofing paper and create a problem. Now, here's the flashing paper, and you can see that it just barely covers the metal. Wouldn't be a bad idea to run a bead of caulking down here. That way, when you cover it with the paper, you will seal the area to prevent any water that gets on the metal from going to the side. Remember, on the side, they like to see at least 12 inches wherever there's a lap. And right here, it would only be about an inch. So that's not going to be good. This is where the caulking would be good. Seal the caulking over the top and then put the flashing paper down. Here's another suggestion I would like to make. If you have the flashing paper, simply cut the metal so that it extends past, and again, this could go as far as you want, whatever you would feel comfortable, but have it go past, and this is how it would look here. And then this way, and you could always seal the top of this with caulking, and then when you put the paper back on, and you could always seal the side of this too. And this is another one of those things that where you don't need to seal this area and this area, and just in case water gets trapped. And for anything running vertically, up and down, you can't actually seal this area and seal this area. You could actually seal this because any water that gets on top of this or behind it is going to come down anyway. You're just not going to want to seal the bottom of it. You can seal the top of it because any water that's coming down, you're going to want it to go down. But if you were to seal the bottom of this, any water that gets behind it is going to get trapped, and that's not going to be a good thing. Let's take a look at the metal. This is what it would look like. You would just simply buy some L-metal and cut a notch out of it, and then this would extend over. The last example I would like to share with you would be something that might be required by an architect. If you were working on some projects, I think I've seen this on commercial properties. Maybe at a school you'd see something like this, and this would be to simply get a piece of metal, have it shaped a little differently so that any water that was to get behind the underneath the threshold would roll back and it wouldn't go into the framing, and you get a better idea here as we take a look at it. So here you would have a piece where the metal would bend up at a 90-degree angle. You've got it protruding past, and then it's bent up in the back. So this area would need some type of a sealant or solder, depending upon what you choose to do. They used to solder them a long time ago, but now with the sealants they have, you can really just put some sealant in the bottom there. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to put some sealant here and some sealant here. This way the sealant here, when it squishes down, but this would be open. Any water that did get down here, you're not going to want it to go out this way and go behind the metal. If you put kind of a little diverter here, the water would, if it did get behind the threshold or under the threshold, instead of rolling around and down, it's going to roll out here and down, something like that. Hope that makes sense. Give you a better idea of the metal here. And you can see it's shaped to prevent any water from coming back in here. Most of the water is going to drain off to the front. This is what it would look like with the jamb. And you can see where the metal is sticking out here. You would think this could be a problem, but once you put the jamb in, you can see that it's not going to be a problem. So shaping the pan or the threshold pan like this would, you're not going to have a problem with the metal protruding out. So you wouldn't want to have this on the line over here. You're going to have to check out the door jamb, check out the threshold, get some measurements before you can make the pan. And I hope that makes sense, because a lot of people will build something like this and they'll make it even with the framing, and that might not work if the door jamb isn't going to be that size. And remember, let's go back, a lot of the times the door jambs stick past. Let's go back over here. they will be the width of the drywall. If the drywall is going to be a 1/2 inch, the door jamb will be a 1/2 inch. If it's going to be 5/8, then this measurement will be 5/8, just to give you an idea. That's why the jambs actually protrude back. You can see here where the water could actually, like I was saying, go here, but if you put some sealant around this area, it could divert it to where the water could come out here and drain safely away. That is it. I removed the threshold and the door jamb because this is where I was going to do my explanation of the diverter, but that is it. So anyway, I hope this video helps. If it does, don't forget to hit the old thumbs up button, and it is off to the next video.